I believe we left off. John was answering the question. I'm going to go ahead and start the timer. It should automatically restart after every minute goes off. Please be mindful of it. Follow through on it. If not, I can just mute you. All right, go ahead, John.
So I'm so sorry. I don't want to talk over anyone. When my clock is ticking, then I can talk. I'm just trying to get it right. My first time here. Thank you.
That's okay.
Um, what am I responding to? I mean, I ask you what teachings of Christ the MAGA movement or Trumpism fights for on a legislative basis. Right now, this budget calls for kicking 20 million low income and disabled people off of Medicaid. When Jesus commands you to welcome the stranger, it sure doesn't sound fun to me. It sounds scary. It sounds very unpleasant. When he commands us to go to the margins and take care of the least of those, it sounds horrifying. Why is Trump right and Jesus is wrong? That's the only question. Thank you. That's it. No more time.
Yeah, so the problem is that that's 10 minutes, by the way, but the
I
problem with
got it.
this is that this is a bifurcation. Neither option here that you have proposed is actually true. You ask, how is Trump right? Jesus is wrong, as though they're in contention with each other. They're not in contention with each other. You saying that Medicaid, a social safety net, which is there's going to be possibly some people who get kicked off of it due to the new
20
budget
million.
system. We have no idea if that's even the case. There's not a single person who's been kicked off of Medicaid right now under Trump. Not one person, John, has been kicked off
Why the
of
government
Medicaid.
shut down?
John,
Hold
why are
on.
you
It
talking
is
during
his
my
time.
time,
Please
John?
stop.
See why I told you you're a filibuster
Sorry,
machine?
you're right.
You can't
My
help it.
apologies.
So anyway, the point here is that also all you got to do is look at the parable of the talents. Those who would return in spiritual wealth, right? What their master gives them. In this case, Trump made an office, a spiritual office. Trump went on and he declared that there's only two genders which are allowed. No more of this heinous mutilation of children, which has been going on from the ideological perspective. I could go on and on and on when we go into the bounties. There's no Democrat operatives you can point to have any of the fruits of the spirit that you would be looking for. Not one, John. Name one.
Go ahead, John.
Thank you.
Very
I'm
speechless.
not a Democrat. I've never belonged to a political party. I've never once belonged to a political party. Again, I asked you to give me one teaching of Christ, and again,
I did.
how are you all helping the poor? Again, it's not a few; it's 20 million. This is why our government is shut down. I have never been a Democrat. I think they walk around in clown shoes, and they are very far from the teachings of Christ. But on the issues of caring for the poor, welcoming the stranger, healthcare, opposing racism, treating women with respect, they are light years closer to the teachings of Jesus and the Gospels than the policies of Donald Trump, which continues to be the brazen junk wagging opposite of everything Jesus commands of us. I don't really see why those of us who've read the Gospels should believe that people who endorse Donald Trump respect the teachings of Christ. You are part of a movement that's trying to make the poor more poor and the rich more rich, and that part has been done.
It's hilarious that you say that. When considering Bernie Sanders said that it's a mass migration is a Koch brother conspiracy because it broke the back of the very labor unions you want to see inside the United States, John. Broke the back of them. It used to be that Democrats were the ones who were anti-immigration because of that particular problem until they realized that they would get a voting block out of it. The next thing to point out here is you didn't actually give me any parables at all that any politicians or a single teaching of Jesus Christ, any politician that you would support follows. You claim that you read the Gospels, but you reject so much of the very Gospels that you read. You claim that there's women who are apostles. You can't point to that. You claim that Paul was in a direct contradiction to Christ's message. You can't prove that either. All that you've done is make assertion after assertion. Your epistemology was completely devastated because it's incoherent. It makes no sense. You can't explain it. On top of that, when we get into the actual policy prescriptions, the best way to uplift people, John, is not to give them money. It's to create the conditionals where they can make the money for themselves. That is the best way to alleviate poverty, not giving them free handouts.
John.
Right. Okay. We give billionaires handouts. We give oil companies $600 million a year just for being you. This is all a racket. And this is how conservative men and women are brainwashed to be furious when we do direct action to help the poor and then turn a blind eye when we just shovel money to billionaires who already are doing just fine. So the immigration scam, the way you know that it's a scam and they're lying to you is that if they actually wanted border crossings to stop, they would start locking up the white people who do all the hiring. There is a giant help wanted sign at our border. Our economy is propped up by an exploited brown-skinned labor force, and Wall Street doesn't want to see this labor force go away. Donald Trump is the only president to have hired undocumented workers in 2 different centuries. He did it to avoid having to pay a living wage to an American worker. It is a racist scam. If they wanted the border crossings to stop, they'd lock up the employers. The Republicans protect them. That's how you know.
Yeah, it's really funny. Democrats weren't locking up any employers at all, John, and Kamala Harris wouldn't have either. Remember that woman that you campaigned for, that you say, even though you say you're not a Democrat, but you went and you actually went to a fundraiser and raised money on her behalf and called yourself a liberal Catholic. Would you like for me to pull that up again? So the thing is really
awesome.
funny. The thing, yeah, exactly. Don't tell me you're not a Democrat operative. You were operating on behalf of Democrats. On top of that, let's just point out very quickly, if you want to talk about millionaires and billionaires who are scamming us, right? And you bring up Trump because you have TDS, even though this debate's not about Trump. The Christian right is simply saying that we can alleviate poverty the best possible way by creating the conditionals for people to take themselves out of it. Millionaires and billionaires are the ones scamming you on immigration. They're the ones who want all the cheap labor, John. They want the cheap labor, as much cheap labor as they can possibly get. Why wouldn't they? Why would millionaires and billionaires be against unfettered illegal immigration when they're the ones who are the primary benefactors of it? We're the ones speaking truth to power, not you.
John, to you.
Well, Ronald Reagan, of course, is the one who wanted open borders and who gave amnesty. There are no Democrats who are fighting for that right now. And again, this all comes down to the fact that people don't want to welcome the stranger. They don't want to do what Jesus commands of us. They want to go around Jesus, either back to the Old Testament or forward to Paul, because Jesus is too inconveniently woke for a lot of people. And I get it. I understand how threatening that can be. But again, I talked about immigration, and you didn't answer any of the points. Donald Trump has hired undocumented workers in 2 different centuries. Undocumented workers built Trump Tower here in New York City because he didn't want to pay American workers a living wage. It is all about exploitation. And again, if they really cared about the border crossings, if you start locking up these white people who hire lawn work, you'll always see they arrested 400 illegals in the meatpacking plant, but they never arrest the guys counting the money in the back. That's the fraud, and Trump is protecting agricultural workers who are undocumented right now with the carve-out.
Wow, this is great. John says, oh, these billionaires and millionaires just want to get you to hate all the brown people. At the same time, he points out a billionaire utilizing illegal immigrants for the purposes of exploiting their labor, which is really interesting that the Christian right, who wants the billionaires and millionaires to not exploit the labor of illegal immigrants by locking our border down like we should, which would also stop drug trafficking, human trafficking, the most amount of human trafficking, by the way, John, especially if kids comes from across that southern border. No, we're supposed to welcome in the stranger with the fentanyl, right, John? We're supposed to welcome in the stranger who's doing the human trafficking. We're supposed to just welcome them in, or are we supposed to have laws within the confines of Christian ethics? We know that that's immoral and wrong, and if we can do things to prevent it, like lock down our southern border, where you have a government who's giving incentives to their own people to do that by working with the cartels, ought we not do that, John? John says, well, no. No, we shouldn't. We should just welcome him with open arms. It's insane and contradictory.
I don't say we should welcome them with open arms. I've never said that. Jesus says that. I've never said it. Jesus says that. Actually, I'm so sorry. Jesus commands that.
So Jesus wanted us to welcome him.
Hold on,
and Jesus is not ambiguous. God of the Old Testament commands to welcome the stranger and to treat the alien as one of your own, and to never mistreat the alien. Those folks are in this country because people like Donald Trump offer them jobs. The Republican Party needs you to not see them as human, so they will call them illegals, which is a racist slur. You'll never hear anyone on Fox News refer to a white lawbreaker as an illegal. Donald Trump has all these felony convictions. They won't call him an illegal. That word is specifically used as a slur for brown people who are more accurately called Christian refugees. I didn't say welcome them with open arms. Jesus did. I don't pretend to be as good as Jesus. I just object to criminalizing migrants by calling them mean slurs.
You see how silly and contradictory this is? You didn't refute a single point that I put out there, refuted each one of yours, and I'll refute all of these too. The reason that they're called illegals and not white people who are here is because the white people who are here usually aren't illegals, John.
They only call brown people illegals.
Hold on.
Because it's only the brown people who are here illegally for the most part, John. There's very few white people here in the United States who are here illegally, John. It's not even in the same universe. And
Oh,
here's why.
no,
It's
no.
really
John,
simple
hold on.
why, too, John. Really simple why. Because we have a direct southern border with Mexico. We don't have a direct border with Europe, so they can't really cross in here very much. So almost everybody who crosses in here comes in from Hispanic nations, and most of them who cross in illegally cross in from those nations. That's why they're called illegals, not because people are trying to be meansy pants to them, but because they're trying to say that we don't want illegal immigrants in our nation because of all the problems that I just listed. Them working with cartels for human trafficking, drug violations, things which you say Jesus would support. He would support you welcoming those people with open arms. It's foolish, John. Makes no sense.
John, to you.
That's a lie. I wouldn't say that, and Jesus wouldn't support that. The majority of fentanyl comes in through the ports. It is not carried in by people who are crossing the border. I'd like to think that if I were trying to escape the violence of our drug war, I would love my kid enough to take the risk and do the journey. But again, they only call the brown ones illegals. The majority of undocumented immigrants, and please, folks, please don't believe me, look all this up. The majority of undocumented immigrants in this country are people who overstay their visas, not people who cross the border. There are over 20,000 undocumented Irish in this country. Do you hear anything about them? Anything about the undocumented Russians? There's thousands and thousands. No, it's only one kind. I don't see a lot of undocumented Asian people being hassled either. Again, Donald Trump hired them in 2 different centuries. They need you to not see these people as people. Jesus commands you to welcome them, and God commands you to never mistreat them.
Well, John just lied to you multiple times. First and foremost, when it comes to fentanyl, quote, most fentanyl was smuggled into the United States via the southern border, according to federal law enforcement government reports as of 2022, 2023, 2024. Now,
Ports of entry.
I'm guessing
Ports
that
of
we don't.
entry.
Hold, please
The
hold.
southern border, John. The southern border. You were trying to make it sound like that wasn't the case. Otherwise, what were you arguing against? What would you even have been arguing against? When I say it comes in through the southern border, you say, nah, it comes in through the port. Why would you even make the argument if you were agreeing with me that that's where it comes in? Makes no sense. Caught in a lie right there. Not only
No,
that,
it's not a lie.
let's
Hold
point
on,
out,
please.
let
Hold
us
on, please.
let us point out that the majority of the illegal immigrants, when you're talking about the overstaying of visas versus people who are crossing in illegally, you're talking about 2 different scenarios. Again, where the assignment of illegal immigrant, you're talking about Hispanics crossing illegally, they're not overstaying their visas, John. That's why we call them something different.
Go ahead, John.
You so need them to be subhuman. It's like you need them to be this vulgar noun, illegal, so we don't see them as human. And this is what Christian nationalism does. You'll have the leaders who will tell you that there's this tiny little powerless group, has no power over your society, but an existential threat to our entire way of life, and only I can keep you safe. Over 90% of fentanyl seized by U.S. Customs and Border is intercepted at legal crossings or at interior vehicle checkpoints. This includes land border crossings. Drug trafficking organizations primarily hide fentanyl inside passenger vehicles, or they commingle it in legitimate cargo on tractor trailers. Federal data shows U.S. citizens are the primary couriers for smuggling fentanyl. From 2018 to 2024, U.S. citizens accounted for 80% of convicted fentanyl traffickers in Southwest border districts. Again, it's so important. You can't follow Jesus, so you got to make him evil. You just have to do it because Jesus is too hard.
Yeah, nobody made him evil. What's hilarious about this is, sure, they're U.S. citizens who have tons of Hispanic family members in Mexico who are often threatened by cartels. He leaves that part out. Isn't that funny? Check out what the racial demographics are of those smugglers, John, and then get back to me. And
You
the
said
reason
they were illegal.
the
to cross
reason
the
is
border.
the
Hold on.
reason
I'm
the
going
reason
to,
is
pardon me, Andrew. I'm going to just pause your time. I apologize. If
Yeah.
we can't stop talking while the timer's going and it's the other person's turn, please mute yourself to add a little added piece of control. Okay. All right, Andrew, I hand it back to you.
Yes. So anyway, what my point was is that the government of Mexico utilizes its own state apparatuses in order to work with cartels to push drugs across the border. Whether or not they're being pushed by people who are U.S. citizens who happen to have family members in Mexico being threatened by said cartels has nothing to do with anything. That when I'm talking about illegal trafficking, it is also illegals doing this, and it's also illegals who are doing human trafficking back and forth and gun running. So the thing is like we still have to have a border policy, John. We can't have open borders. I don't know why you think Jesus wants to contribute to drug trafficking, contribute to human trafficking, things like this without having staunch borders. That's insane. It makes no sense, and it's never made sense, John.
Go ahead, John.
Release the Epstein files, right? We agree? We agree?
Yeah. Yeah.
Release the Epstein files. All the names, right? We agree?
Yeah. All of them.
It's kind of weird that Donald Trump is blocking it so hard and playing dumb about it after promising for years to release it, because I'm with you on trafficking.
That's quite the pivot, John.